takes. Oop. Hi, everybody. This is Joy Lingerie, and I'm your monitor today, the administrator for Mature Musicians Group. And I have Roni Lee with us today, the very distinguished guitarist that I've been advertising the last week. Hi, Roni.
Hi,
And
Joy. Pleasure.
thank you. And I do want to give a shout out to the Luscious Moss studio that's owned and operated by Chad Christ. He's a fantastic guitarist, singer, songwriter, but he also has his own studio and he caters to drumming, recording, and guitar recording. But he also has created an atmosphere and environment conducive to creativity. I know because I've worked there. So he's a great guy,
Right.
great producer, and I'm sure you'd enjoy him. You can find him on Facebook at Luscious Moss Studio, and he is in Edgewood, Washington. With that, I like to start in this interview with Roni Lee, and I really am waiting. I just can't wait to get to it. So the first question I have for you, and I think you've already answered this, but our audience hasn't heard it, is how you got started and what was your first instrument, Ronnie?
Well, I got started very young, and I was not allowed to listen to rock and roll in the environment I
Oh,
was raised in.
oh no.
I snuck some 45s that I found in the garage that my mother had owned, and it was the Martian Hop and Yellow Polka Dot Bikini, and which I considered rock and roll at the time.
Oh
And
yes.
I thought this stuff is awesome. And I was raised by wonderful grandparents, by the way. They just thought that some kind of music wasn't really good for you at the time. So I had my little 45 player, and I thought the drums were particularly interesting and fun and energetic, and I loved the rhythm of drums. I still do. So I convinced my grandfather, who used to go to the auctions and buy little things and fiddle around because he was a tinkerer. I convinced him to find me a set of drums. So I did get a set of drums,
Hey.
and I played the Martian Hop endlessly. Those poor people. No wonder they didn't want to play rock and roll. I remember they were silver sparkly drums. They were very cool, and they were very loud. And that didn't last too long. Then I played piano. We all had accordions as we grew up because I was raised by Swedish grandparents, which was fine, but not really my instrument. Ironically, I married an accordionist many years later, but that's another story. And then one day my little brother, was playing the guitar. He was playing something out of a Hootenanny book, and I thought, well, that looks like fun, and I don't want my brother to do anything I can't do. So I grabbed the guitar out of his hands, which I was known to do, and started playing it, and I loved it. And then I discovered rock and roll and the Rolling Stones and Black Sabbath, and everything went crazy. Then we had talked about why I was so independent, because I did leave home at an early age and joined a rock band at 15. So that was 50 years ago, and I've played guitar ever since.
Amazing,
So I just loved it. I loved the power of it, the strength of it, the emotion of it. It was a great way for a angst-driven teenage girl to. We all get rid of our stresses some ways, and that was mine.
Yes. So how about what was the ages here? I mean, you don't have to give an exact age, but what period of your life when you first started with the drums and the guitar were you? About 5 or 6?
That was probably 12, 13, something like that. It was in the 60s, later 60s. Okay. And I think that was my start. I obviously didn't play professionally until later. In fact, I was fired from my first band because I was so horrible. I was awful.
When was that?
Wanted to play so bad that they just said, just not ready for prime time. And I didn't stop me because I'm like, well, I will be ready. So then I just hunkered down, because you got to remember back then, really, we had record players and our ears and a guitar. We didn't have any really, I didn't take guitar lessons. I didn't have music lessons. I was very, I just didn't have those things, were not available to me. and girls didn't play rock and roll guitar. So I didn't
Right.
have anybody to even, it didn't occur to me that girls didn't play rock and roll guitar, by the way. I never did it as a thing where this is a women's lib thing or this is, I never had an attitude about it. I just like playing. So people ask me about that. I've done a number of interviews about it. And I said, look, I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody except myself. It brings me, it just is part of what I do now. So, girl or no girl.
I hear you.
Somebody accused me once of not being a girl because they said, well, girls don't play guitar like that. You must not be a girl. And I said, well, I am. So
So how long was it before Joan Jett and The Heart came somewhere in there? So you were playing before them?
Oh, before Joan and all that? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was playing actually after when I realized I needed to learn how to play the guitar, like we were discussing earlier before we came on. I joined a show band in Reno that needed an all-girl lineup. And It was in the 70s, and of course, finding a girl lead guitar player was almost impossible. So when they caught wind of me, they were willing to help me out a little bit and give me some learning. So they did. I actually learned a lot of music from them because the keyboard player was a jazz player, and she taught me the math of music and how it worked, and instead of just playing by ear, which I had done before. So then I mixed music theory in with again, the left hand with the right hand came together a little more. We discussed that before too.
Yes.
And I fell in love with Jeff Beck, who's my guitar hero all time. I fell in love with his playing, and I learned that time the Blow by Blow album had just come out. And so I learned all those songs, literally every song off the Blow by Blow album. And they're tough. They're tough tunes. But when you're on the road, you're traveling, and you don't have Netflix or anything, it gave me something to do. And fortunately, because when the Runaways got together, I somehow read about it in a newspaper somewhere or some music magazine, because of course there's another way to hear things back then. And I called Kim Fowley, that manager, to say he was putting together another band called Venus and the Razorblades, and he was doing a cattle call for girl musicians because it's, again, hard to find, And so I called him, and he said, well, you're not a musician. You're just trying to get an interview. And he hung up on me. Repeatedly. He goes, no, you're not a guitar player. I said, I'm a girl guitar player. I know it's weird, but I am. And I was from Los Angeles, but I wasn't in Los Angeles at the time. I was in Reno playing in this band. So he said, well, if you can show up all dressed and ready to go with your amps set up in your apartment, playing when I walk in, I'll give you an audition. So I did. And I played the Jeff Beck stuff, and you're hired. So he hired me. And then I started writing and working with those guys. And but he put me on the spot. He liked to do that to people. He liked to make you very nervous, and he accomplished it. It was an easy audition compared to some of the auditions I saw.
Really? I was kind of wondering about that because, I had a band for 15 years and starting in 2015, and it was a struggle. I mean, I don't play lead, so I had to depend upon my lead. And when it came to managing part of the band, they wouldn't listen to me. So I finally said, okay, fine. And I just gave it all over to my husband. And I said, you can do it because they're not listening. And, I got a little flack for it. That was quite a while ago. That was 20 some years. And the managers of clothes and so forth were called forking around. And sometimes we were double booked and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, too bad. There's girls out there who like to play and sing. So, live with it. It's going to happen.
Right. Well, and, you have to really, the David Grohl philosophy is, just be good, just put your head down and just be good at what you do and just keep on going. And you can't let people stop you from what you love to do. And I just never occurred to me not to do it. It was never an option to not do this. It wasn't. I've slowed down a couple times because I had children. I got married in the 90s, or actually late 80s. I got married, and you have babies. It's a little tougher to travel the world. I kept playing. He's a musician, so we did a couple of joint projects together, and it's just you want. I think people should have a full life, and you want to do everything. Music isn't everything to me. It's just part of what I do, and I do enjoy it. It keeps me going. It drives me. There's times when I'm like, I just want to lay around. I can't. So I think it helps keep you young when you don't lay around, because
exactly. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I get it. So at this time, you were playing in Vegas with this Mr. Beck. Was that, excuse me, I'm not familiar with who he was. So what band, was it a band that you were in Vegas that you were playing, or a show, or?
No, I live there half the year. So we're recording there right now. Lynn Sorensen and Paul and Lonnie Smith and I are recording over there. But the only band I've ever been in, except for Venus and the Razor Blades, and there's a couple of bands way back 40 years ago, has been the Roni Lee group. I started my own band when all the Runaway stuff broke up in around 1979, and it's been my band ever since. I like being a band leader. It keeps control of the music in my hands. I do a lot of different projects. I'm playing in a band with Mike Keneally right now, who's from Frank Zappa. So we have a band called Keneally, Grano, Nash, and Lee, and we do some really fun stuff. And so I'll do different projects like that. But for the most part, typically, unless it's filling in for someone, which I've done a couple of fill-ins, again, there's always a few exceptions, and somebody can jump in, oh, you played in my band in 1979 for 6 months. Okay, maybe I did. But for the most part, it's been the Roni Lee group from day one. And, it's kind of like Pat Travers or whatever, or, I'm a solo artist, actually, that has players that I typically like to play with. I sort of got a stable of players, if you will, and a huge stable of drummers, because I'm a drummer, again, because of my drummer, I have a thing about drummers, and they all have a little bit of a different style. So sometimes I've used so many drummers in the Northwest. I've used Jeff Cathan, I've used Paul Higgins, I've used Doug McGrew, I've used, there's probably 2 or 3 I'm missing up there. Down here, I've used Kenny Arnoff, and I've used Mike Masonette from Missing Persons, and Brian Tichy from Whitesnake. I mean, I have some great drummers that I play with. And Tasha Jones, she's amazing. She's from LA. There's a couple in San Diego here, Larry Grano. I mean, I've probably got 15 drummers, not to mention the guys on the East Coast and the guys in Germany that I use. And they're all phenomenal, but they're all different and unique, and they play differently for different things. So you'll see me with one, but it's not because I fired a drummer. It's just because that drummer, it works well for this project, and they're all so good. It's a little tough sometimes to make the choice, but I tried doing an album one time with 4 different drummers, and that was a little bit tricky. I probably wouldn't do it again, but it was fun.
Have you gone international? Do you tour internationally, Roni Lee?
Oh yeah. Okay.
I
have a goal. I have. Usually, I'm in Europe every year. But this, of course, last couple of years has not happened. But I'm usually there every year.
Yeah. Well, that kind of brings us into COVID. So there are just a few questions that I want to ask before we do that. How did you meet Lynn Sorensen? And I hear that you're going to be recording with him next week. And I've seen little blips of him in your video, so I know he's been working live with you too.
More than a little blip, but yeah. In my Heroes video, he was a blip in Young Wild Boys.
Yes.
In the Heroes video, he and I and Kenny Arnoff did that as a trio. That was awesome. If you get a chance to see that one, we did that too 3 or 4 years ago. I met Lynn, probably should have met him back in the 80s when I was playing in Seattle. We missed each other somehow. We often talk about that because Joe Shikani and all these people that we all knew together, and Child and Bighorn and Stryker and all the bands from that time period. Lynn played with all of them, knew all of them, and so did I. So I don't know how we missed each other, but we did. And so about 10 or 12 years ago, I was playing up there. I was playing with Jeff Cathman, and Jeff was in Paul Rogers with Lynn, from the guy from Bad Company. And they had just left Paul Rogers, and I think they were kind of looking for something, whatever they were looking, to do the next. And he was referred to me by Jeff, because I had known Jeff. Jeff played drums with me in 1979. I've known Jeff Cathman a long, long time. And he referred Lynn to me. He says, well, I got a bass player up here. And they work together so much. They're a good rhythm. A lot of times if you can get a rhythm section that plays together, you can really, that's really great, because they're used to each other. They really get in the pocket with each other, And so I played a show with them, and we just hit it off, and we've played a bunch of them ever since then. And we did some albums together. I mean, we've done a number of recording projects together. We wrote Heroes together. We wrote one of the songs off All Dressed Up album is he and I wrote, called Last Leper. These next 4 songs on this EP we wrote together. So they're a collaboration of ours. And it's just been, now we're just like Mutt and Jeff,
Yeah, you work very well together. You both work very well together. Yeah. How many albums do you have?
I'm a couple days older than him, so I get the say. I get to be the boss.
Yeah, I see that. Here, so how many albums do you have out? I didn't explore that part of.
Oh my gosh, from day one, quite a few. Well, some of the stuff that I've written isn't my albums, but the gold album that I have is with the Runaways. I have albums from the 70s on. I probably have my Discogs, probably 15 albums, different works. These days, people have been releasing singles. So I've been releasing singles, but now I'm going to go back to, I think, releasing EPs. And this year, my super exciting news is, if we get this flowing right, is to release a vinyl. And the vinyl will have these new songs, some of the also the singles that didn't land on a compilation, like Young Wild Boys and Love Somebody by Rick Springfield, the redo that I did of that, and did Cold Hearted Lover. There's a couple of songs that are going to end up on this.
Love it.
Have a theme.
I don't either. Oops, go ahead. Finish your thought. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying we want to get all that on a compilation album, and also some of my favorites that I've done in the past. And there's a couple of covers that we've stylized that we may try to squeeze onto it if we can. But my plan is by midsummer to have the vinyl done.
All right.
We'll have an EP out before then with these new songs on it, but the vinyl will be a compilation of a whole bunch of different things that have come out in the last few years.
I actually am going to buy this. I'm still waiting for a sweatshirt, but I want your album.
I know you're getting one too. I'm making that happen for sure.
Okay. So we have a listener here that says, "Hi Joy, I'm enjoying your guest. She has great advice for aspiring young female musicians," and I agree. I mean, absolutely. I do
a lot of counseling for young, and I own a record label called Play Like a Girl Records.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The label is mostly mentors younger artists, but it also facilitates older, of more what we call, legacy artists. That's the word for it. And that want to come back and get their product out. So I've had that record label for about 8 years or something like that too. So I do lots of mentoring, believe me, with especially now, it's difficult to know how to put your songs out, what's the best way to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
I always tell people, expect to spend some money,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know.
especially in the recording area, and then after you record. A lot of people think when they're done when they recorded the song. The song's done, I'm done.
Oh,
Actually, that's the beginning
it's
of
something good.
everything. That's like birthing a child and then going, okay, well, you're on your own.
I get
It
it.
doesn't really work like that at
So
all.
I have it.
So,
I have two more guests on here, Ronnie. And no, it doesn't.
yeah.
You have to promote that stuff, and there's a lot to just that. So I have
Uh-huh.
Bob Kedrick here said, "Hi, Joy and Ronnie. You might remember Bob Kedrick. He
Yes, I do.
jams
Yes.
with, yeah." And another user said, "Hi, Ronnie," but they didn't tell me who they are. So if you could please let us know who you are, I'd appreciate that. For some reason, this thing it is hard to get your name up there or something. So
Oh, yeah. Make sure you sign your name. Yeah. And if anybody has any questions, I'd
yes,
love to,
absolutely.
especially, huh?
Absolutely. I've requested that they ask you questions, but so far
Yeah.
they're staying pretty quiet because I think they're really
They're all
listening to
saying
what you're
hello.
saying. Now, this bio thing that you're talking about is sort of a musical bio. Do you
A
play
little
music?
bit, yeah. It's going to be new songs and then some of my favorites from back in the original Roni Lee group that Steve Buffington and I wrote together in the early 80s. And then there'll be things that came along that, like I said, some of the cover tunes that we've stylized. Lynn and I do a version of Dirty Diana by Michael Jackson that everybody seems to like. So
I
we
don't
may
know
end
that.
up throwing that on there.
I have to
You
look that
never know.
up.
Dirty
So I,
Diana. I
no,
played with Jennifer Batten on a few shows, and we had a good time. She was a great guitar player too.
I was more into country, so I'm just discovering the rock and roll world. I mean, rock back then is all country now. I mean, I mean,
Classic rock and country have a lot in common. It all
yeah,
tells a story. You
yeah.
like to hear the lyrics. The lyrics, it's usually a story, and our music videos have stories. Although they're saying that that's not in right now, but I don't care. I don't care what they say.
Anyway, we got another comment here, and it's a common one, and it's one that I usually ask, but I usually save it for the COVID section, which we're moving into right now. And this guest did not identify themselves, but they did say, "Did you ever want to quit running?" Roni Lee.
Never. No, not even. Like I said, I have quit projects a few times. Not very often though. I pretty much stick with it, but I have never wanted to quit playing music. Um, Never occurred to me. Like I said, even in the beginning when there was no other women guitar players that I knew of, and I didn't even know that I didn't know anything about the music industry. So never, and I was told that I'd never be able to play guitar by the first guy that fired me. He goes, "You should do something else." That didn't. I remember thinking, "Huh, that's a weird thing to say." And then I just went, hunkered down some more. And I honestly hadn't been playing very long, and I probably, very rightly so, should have fired me. But I was probably 16 years old at the time, 17 maybe at the most, probably 16 because by 17 I was working. So I just put my nose to the grindstone. I said, well, the best way to not have this ever happen again is to get better.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
no, it never occurred to me to quit.
Yeah.
It still doesn't occur to me to quit, 50 years later. So whatever.
Yeah. God, that's a long.
People say, do you retire? I go, there's no such word, there's no retiring. I guess you could retire from touring or retire from, a super active schedule if you had health reasons. And of course, everybody has to, a lot of people do slow down. But like I opened for Johnny Winter quite a few times. Lynn was on the show with me, actually, the last time we did this, opened for him a couple months before he passed away. Oh. And hung out with him in his trailer. And he was a little bit out of it. You weren't really sure if he was sure what was going on around him or not. But as soon as he went on stage and got a slide on his hand, he was 24 years old again,
My
And he had
husband,
always said he wants to go with his boots on playing rock and roll, and it's exactly what happened. So I think that is, he lived the best example of, yeah, no, people, he, a lot of, and there were some people who were of the opinion that maybe he should have quit, but then what are you going to do? Just sit home and watch Netflix and
there
veg
you go.
until you, I mean, they took good care of him. He seemed satisfied with what was going on. And he was certainly aware that he was playing guitar because you don't, you know. So
Well,
anyway,
my husband and I both work
oh,
for a
that's
production company
good.
called Rhino out of Tempe, Arizona, and they're up here in Seattle, and they're the roadie bunch and sound crew and whatever for bands and so forth.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not going to name the band, but they use their walkers and their canes to get up on stage. And it's a well-known band, but I'm not going to tell you who. It's at Tulalip Casino. And they got up on stage, the lights came on, and my husband said it was an absolute transformation. These people that were barely able to get up the steps produced like you wouldn't believe. So you're right. I agree with you.
Well, there's a lot of energy that happens on stage, and something kind of takes over when you're on there. And I've walked off pretty gimpy from injuries or different things, and afterwards you think a truck hit you, but when you're up there, you feel like a kid. So
Yeah.
you played with me before on
Yeah.
stage, so yeah.
Oh my God, I did. And you know what? That was so high energy. I couldn't sleep all night. I loved it. I just loved it.
Yeah, that's how
What
it
I
is.
liked, what I liked the most is that you could keep Lynn in check. I just thought it was cool.
Well,
It could be a
he
bad.
lets me think I'm keeping him in check. Let's put it that
Ah,
way.
ah.
He's got a good way of you know, we just we get along very well, and I know his moods and he knows mine, and I can tell when he needs
Yeah.
to do his thing, and I'm quite happy to let him do it. He's very capable.
So what were you doing during COVID? I mean, I don't know how many gigs or how much your band plays. I've never seen you in this area before until Lynn brought you over to Chad Chris Studio, and I believe you were in a stream over there. And I watched
Yes.
you for the first time, and I saw, who is this lady? And then I ran into you at the Twin Dragons. So, yeah,
Well, I mean, I think I've done what everybody's done. I've tried to create new music. I tried to get over the whole freak out over it initially and the shutdown stuff.
yeah,
I didn't really I stopped traveling as much. I went into more live streams. I did quite a few live streams myself throughout the time, and
okay.
got proficient enough to do it, but I never really got the hang of it. And never really. I'm a live player. I just like playing live. That's where my energy comes from. So sitting there behind that little camera, performing was not the same for me. A lot of people just got grabbed onto it, and they did really well. In fact, some people are continuing to do it, and I think that they should. And it's turned into a great medium for people to see people's music. So it's been awesome. But as soon as I could get back to playing live, I did. So I am back playing live, but still not as much, depending on the availabilities and things like that. I'm still, waiting to book more things. So meanwhile, getting this new music out and everything is important. So the guys have been coming, instead of me coming to Seattle, typically I record up there. There's a studio that I use, Skeleton Key in Vegas, that I really love. It's a great studio, great drum studio. And so the guys just come down. They've agreed to do it at my place this time.
Okay.
But I'll be back up in Seattle. Will be back up there February 9th for 5 days.
So we
have
have
a show at Vessel Tap House on the 12th.
Where is it? What tap house?
At the Vessel Tap House in Linwood.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
playing with the Davinos on the 12th.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I've gone to the Oxford and played with Joey Batista, and of course I played with the Shortcuts, and Fred is their their drummer, Fred McMahon.
Yeah.
Is, yeah, great drummer. Anyway, I have another comment here from somebody who's a great fan of yours. Her name is Holly Ray, and she's saying
Yes,
hello. And hi, Holly, and I'm glad you joined us. So, so from if I'm understanding what you're saying that COVID really didn't slow you down. You just sort of skipped a beat.
No, I got it early. I got it early, got it over with. And, I just, I mean, I tell people I've brought some flus back from Germany that made COVID look like nothing. I remember, I've got some foreign stuff, let me tell you. But, I mean, it slowed me down like it slowed everybody down. But, again, I know that it's going to pass. And so when it does, then hopefully now this will be the last big thing that we get through. And hopefully by summer we're out of this. And, I'm planning on going back to Europe and getting all my stuff done,
When you mentioned Europe, you mentioned Germany. I lived in Germany for about 4 months. I was working on my thesis for my doctorate, and I absolutely fell in love with that country. And I Volksmarched all over, everywhere. We couldn't go too much because it was 86 and there was a lot of terrorist activity. And my husband was an officer in the military, so we had to be kind of careful, but I couldn't cross over into France. Couldn't go any of the places I really wanted to go. But you said you played there. Where were you in Germany?
Well, I do little tours over there every year. So we start in Dusseldorf and we work our way up to Hamburg and all these towns in between. I mean, I don't even know what they're called now, I don't speak German. But then I go to Italy every year, usually with my kids. We're Italians and their dad's Italian. So they like to go there every year and visit the homeland. And and every year we try to visit other places besides Germany and Italy. Well, last time we were there, we drove over to London and drove through Switzerland a little bit and meandered about, France and stuff like that. You can drive the country. So now, of course, with all the open borders, you can go anywhere you want. You don't even go, back in the day, yes, you had to show passports and all that stuff. And you don't really have to do that anymore. So it's just really a great, there's so many different awesome things in each country is so different. But yes, I agree. I love Germany. The people are awesome. They're sweet. They love rock and roll. They get it very excited. Yes. The audiences over there get very excited, and they still do this. They still do the flames or whatever it is, and they don't hold back. They're just awesome. Yep.
No inhibitions, believe me. When I was Volksmarching, I actually ran rather than walked on the Volksmarches because I was a runner too. And I'd be going around a bend, and this guy would be, how to say this politely, but urinating on the trail right in front of everybody.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. And I go, oh, and he says, no, that's fine. Yeah. I go, okay. Then I ended up in a sauna where the guys are coming in one end and the women are coming in the other, and they were naked. So I learned about Germany.
I didn't run into any of that.
What's that? What did you say?
I didn't run into anything like that. I didn't run into anything.
Just my luck.
So, yeah.
So there are a lot of facets in your life. You started out at a young age and had a special determination to do this and feel like you've been on the right course because you haven't given up and you still love it.
It's not always easy, music can be tough, and a lot of people spend their whole life trying to make it or whatever they call that. And they have different measurements of success. And I think that it's how you measure your success in your life that determines really anything that you're doing, right? So I try to be kind of happy in the moment. I really enjoy my family. I love the fact that I paused everything and had 3 kids. Did I give up some of the notoriety for that? Yes, I did, considerably. I stopped touring and I stopped recording, and I was a wife and a mom, and I wouldn't change it. I'm fine with it, you know. I mean, now I get to have so many things that I wouldn't have had if I would have just stayed with that. And I have other people that I know that didn't, and they gave that up on purpose. And whether or not they regret it now, I don't know. That's not up to me to decide. But I know for myself, I love being around my kids and my family. And I don't have any grandkids yet, but someday maybe. And you know, so again, music is a part of things. It just gives you that part of your life fulfillment. It doesn't fulfill everything. I've heard people say, somebody has said, "Oh, I live for music." I go, "Well, it's going to disappoint you. Then I got news for you. Worse than, you know, don't set yourself up for that. Just enjoy it. And like I said, the best revenge is just to be good at it. I still get patted on the head. I still get talked down to as a girl musician. And when I go into Guitar Center, they look at me like they ask me if my boyfriend wants a guitar, you know, all that kind of stuff. I still get all that stuff. Now it's funny. I don't have I never really did have a chip on my shoulder about it. It's just interesting to me that after all these years, still considered, an anomaly.
Yeah, I get the part about the guitar because my husband usually carries my guitar. Even now, it happens, and they ask him what he plays and whatever, and he said, "Is she's the musician?" You know, and I don't call myself that, but I try really hard. I'm working at it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, they get that a lot. I don't know.
Of course, if he's playing the guitar, if he's carrying the guitar, that's probably a good assumption. I'm always carrying my own guitars.
Well, I would.
And it's funny. Go ahead.
I would, but I'm getting old, Ronnie. I got some aches.
Well, it's funny because as I was saying, when I haul stuff out of clubs a lot of times or wherever we're playing, I've got like 2 guitars hanging off of me and something else, and guys will stop and talk to me, and I'll be like, okay, well, okay, okay, I'm holding probably 200 pounds worth of gear here, you know, strategically balanced while they're standing there with a beer in their hand. So I go, well, you got 2 choices. You can get out of my way, or you can carry something if you want to keep talking to me, because that's pretty much what we're going to go with this.
Yeah.
And then I go, I'm sorry, you know. I know it's oversight sometimes, but I have schlepped a lot of gear in my life.
Yeah, I did too. I work for
now I have people that help me. Thank goodness.
I worked for the production company Rhino for some time, and yeah, I did wardrobe. I did driving, you know, fetching everything, and I also worked on the stages and set up the equipment and rolled cords and everything else. And I know what it's like to carry that stuff and how heavy it is. So, but as a result of that, I have some issues now. But anyway, so we have another guest here saying, "Hi, ladies. Would you please identify yourself so we know who you are?" I can't see your name on this system, but hi. So taking us into the future, I know that you're going to be recording. Oh, hi, Chad. Luscious Moss, he said. I know.
Oh, who is it?
Luscious Moss Studio. I think it's Chad.
Oh, it's Chad.
Yeah, yesterday was Lyric's birthday. I believe it's yesterday.
Really? Two years old or what?
I think he's 2, but I don't know. All I remember is just a little tiny thing when I started recording, and now he's just shooting up. And cuter than a bug.
Yeah.
So anyway, going into the future, you're going to record next week. And 2. He said 2.
I thought so. I thought he was
the terrible 2s. Just wait, Chad. You got it coming.
Oh, they can move around, but they're not smart enough to know where they're going. That's dangerous.
And they
You
love
tell
the
it.
word no.
Not run off the ledge. Sorry, no, run into. That's scary.
Well, he sits in boxes, but that's the worst I've seen him do so far. Little Eric. Okay, so
Dude.
you're going to record with Lynn next week. Are you making one song or more than that, or is it
4 songs. It's a 4-song EP. I'm trying to get one finished by Valentine's Day because it's called Black Valentine, and so I'm trying to get it at least out there to be heard. If I can't get it distributed by then by my distributor, but at least it'll get out there by Valentine's Day because it's really a fun. So there's 4 little rockers. I just got in this mood where I'm like, okay, I'm tired of saying. And then Lynn and I wrote a song called Prisoner that we wrote. It's about drug addiction, and that's about our 2 children who struggled with it. And so it was a personal song that the 2 of us wrote together. So we're going to be releasing that pretty soon here with the video. The video's done. And then I said, okay, I'm tired of the serious stuff. I want to write 4 rock and roll songs. So we wrote 4 little rockers. And they're fun and just, crunchy and mixed, kind of Aerosmithy, AC/DC kind of stuff. So fun.
all right?
No tapping.
So, this bio that you were talking about, this project that you were working on, when are you thinking of having that out?
The vinyl is they were shooting for midsummer. Hopefully, summer is a great time to do that. So, like I said, as soon as I can get this EP done, then I'll have most of the songs ready for it, and I'll pretty much be ready to go. Then it's just about getting it pressed. And vinyl's a little difficult because it's pricey to press it. I don't normally do fundraisers for myself for recording. I try to fund it by sales of other things and T-shirts and sweatshirts and and then I have a few people that help me out, a few private folks that support the recordings, and it's a business like anything else. It costs money to run it. So the shows normally pay for just a few things. So, and then of course we're not playing right now, so that's a tough one.
Are you shut down
Huh?
Are you shut down in Vegas? Are they not doing shows in Vegas?
No, they're going, but I don't play Vegas very much.
Oh.
Vegas is more of the tribute bands and the club bands, which is very, very, very cover band oriented. Original rock bands are not really working a lot in Vegas as far as making any money. I mean, I could play for free if I wanted to, or almost for free. It's same thing with Los Angeles, where I'm from. You don't play in LA much because that's where you live, but you don't play there much. There's not a lot of demand for it. And I always tell musicians too, you have to go where the demand is. You can't just sit where you're at and go, well, everybody needs to come see me here. Well, maybe not. Maybe you need to go to Nebraska. Sorry, but that's how it goes. Maybe you need to go to South Dakota and play some rock and roll for those boys, If that's who likes your music, then that's where you got to go. And that's why I travel so much. Because, you want to go where your music's received, and, it's just not always in your hometown, which is fine. I live in my hometown for different reasons, not for music.
Yeah.
I was born where I was born, and then I bought a house in Las Vegas because, quite frankly, it was quite affordable, and it's just a few hours from California, from my house in California. So anyway, yeah.
So beyond those 2 projects, what else are you doing in the future? What is your future looking like, Roni?
Wow. Well, again, I think what I was hoping for was once this new music is out this year, of course, we're always writing, we're always coming up with stuff, but I was hoping for the end of this year and next year to be back touring. That's my hope, is I want to get back to playing live. That's what I love, that's what I want to do, but that requires some planning, especially like if you're doing Europe, you got to book now for next year. It's not something where it's 2 months out, it's 6, 8, 9 months or more out. Right now I'm booking stuff this fall here in California. Not traveling up even to Seattle as much as I used to for shows, just because it's pricey to travel, and the shows are so few,
Yeah.
and some states are more shut down than others.
Yeah.
Some states you
So
wouldn't even know there was COVID, and some states shut
what
down like
is,
crazy. So
I hear you. What is Europe looking like? When do you think that that's finally going to open up enough to where they're going to start touring, allowing touring
every
in?
country's different. Every country's different, and if you're already there, fine. But problem with going there, you don't want to get stuck anywhere. Everybody, we're just gonna have to sit through these next 3 months with this new rash of stuff that we've had here. And
Mhm.
quite honestly, once everybody's gotten it, pretty much, I think we'll be closer to being done with it. But not that I want anybody to get it, but it's just, I feel like the consensus might be that, look, maybe we'll get to the other side of it by the summer a little bit more. This will end. It's not going to go on forever. Even the Spanish flu ended, for God's sakes, at some point.
One of the
So,
things I didn't ask you that I was kind of interested in wondering is, were you ever picked up by a record label? I'm sorry, I don't know that part of you, but
sure. Oh, yeah, a couple times. I was on Arista Records. I was on Heart's record label back when Heart was Mushroom Records. I don't know if you remember those
yeah,
guys.
yeah.
I was on their label in the early 80s. And then I've been on other more independent labels since then. But then when I started my own label 10 years ago, because I had more control over everything then,
Right.
again, I guess I like controlling stuff. And especially when everything went digital and all that, just became easier to, and then other artists, um, in fact, Caden Cashmere up there in Seattle was my first young artist on my
Yeah.
label to get some really great traction on her stuff. So now I've just been on my own label for now. But yeah, I would do it again with another label if the right situation came along. You know,
Yeah. All right.
see what happens. I like these
Yeah.
new songs, so maybe we'll see what happens.
When you go to work for those labels that when you went to work for the labels that you were on, did they tell you what to do? I mean, did they interfere with you?
Absolutely, yes, everything. Yeah, everything. They tell you everything to do. That's the thing. Back then was different than it is now. There's the deals now are a little different, but still basically, yeah, there's a lot of control by them. They tell you what you're going to release and when, and there's you know you don't get big record label advances like you used to anymore. It used to be, and people would say, "Oh, I got all this money from the record label." Well, you didn't. You got an advance, which
Yeah.
means the record label is hoping that you're going to sell that many records, and then they're going to charge you all kinds of fees and this and that, and it's very very controlling environment. Not always bad, but it just is. It's just a very
Yeah.
controlled environment. But they also have a lot of services that they offer you that you don't have on your own. One of them is booking agencies and touring and all that sort of thing. So it's a trade-off. I don't mean to demean it. It's a really
Right.
great thing depending on your deal.
Yeah.
There's so many different ones now, and you don't know what you're getting into.
You need
Gotta
a
be
good
careful
lawyer.
before you sign anything.
Yeah,
Don't
exactly.
sign the papers.
So I have somebody on here. I didn't identify themselves, but they have a question for you, Ronnie. It says, when you're Roni Lee, I'm sorry,
That's all
I
right.
have I have a nephew named Ronnie, so that number that just comes popping out.
You don't need to call me by my last name every time. We're good.
Okay. So it says, when you're songwriting, do you have a process you go through, or do songs just pounce out of you? I love that, pounce out of you.
Pound. That is a good one. It's so funny that they would use that word because sometimes they do. Like one night, I actually dreamed one of the songs, and I had to get it. I woke up in the middle of the night and sung it into my voice memo so I wouldn't forget it because I really liked it. And I still liked it the next day, which typically I don't when that happens. So one of the songs that we wrote is from that, and it's morphed quite a bit, of course, and changed a lot from when but the chorus is the same. So I have two processes here. Either I'll start with the chorus because I've got one in my head,
Right.
and or I will start with, I want to write a song about this.
Yeah.
And then, and it usually revolves around a guitar lick that I'll come up with. And then that starts the process. So it's from two different angles. And the third thing is I almost always write with a drummer. If I've got song ideas, again, going back to my love of drums, I usually have a drummer in the room that's creative. Not all drummers, some drummers are great at playing what you say, hey, play this, and they're amazing at it. Some drummers are just great at creating something. Arnoff is a great creator of licks, drum licks, or a drum beat, because sometimes I don't want the drums to play right along with me. I want the drums to have a personality to the song. Liberty DeVito did that with Billy Joel. He turned his songs into hits because of the drum beat. So that's basically the process. I always write with a drummer. Sometimes I start out with a chorus. It's stuck in my head. I pounce on it. And sometimes I will have a lot of ideas. I have ideas written everywhere. I have them on paper. I have them in my iPad in voice memo. I have it on my phone in voice memo. And then when I get ready to write a song, I'll pull these little shreds together, because I usually have a lick now. Okay, so which one of those ideas fits the lick the best? Gotcha. And sometimes I get 2 songs out of it, and sometimes I'll only get 1 song out of 6 ideas. So
I hear you. The person who made that comment about pounce out of you was Patrick O'Donnell, and I think that's the right pronunciation.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And then Bob Kettrick said, good advice. Read before you sign.
Read before you sign. Anything, right, Bob? Houses, cars, record deals.
Well, you know anything. What? Before I'd sign anything with music, which probably will never happen in my lifetime, but who knows? Life does its own thing. But if that ever were to happen, I'd have a lawyer sitting right next to me.
Well, I think even more importantly than the record deals, which don't happen too often anymore, is the music publishing. People have to be careful about that. That's a whole thing. I have a SoundCloud thing called Roni Lee's Rock Tips on SoundCloud, and it's got probably 30 tips on the music business. Just about, a lot of it's about licensing and record industry stuff. And all the way to how to fire a band member. I mean, there's all kinds of just tips on there that I did like as a podcast thing quite a while back now. And a couple people have asked me to get it going again, and I may, but there's a lot on there, and it talks about all that kind of stuff. Actually, how to get your song published, the steps to do it, and it's no guarantees, but the different ways. There's a lot of intricacies in the music business to step around. You want to be careful that you're not gonna, I mean, you're lucky if you get somebody to look at your song that wants to buy it, but then once you do,
or listen, Yeah, gotcha. So I don't know who said this, but somebody said, damn straight, Bob. So I don't know who's saying that, Bob. And I think Patrick said A-Y-E. So it was him. All right.
That's so true.
So of all your experiences and everything that you've done through your career, 50 years is a long time, are there some things that stand out more? Bob said that. I don't know. Anyway, is there anything that stands out more than something that was like almost earth-shaking besides your private life and having babies and having a personal life? Is there anything in your music that really you remember and you'll always remember?
I remember starting out at the Whiskey, playing some shows with a very young band that had never really played much. Well, they had played a lot, but they weren't signed, and they were a lot of fun. They're super energetic, and they became good friends. And even to this day, when I see them, which isn't very often, they're always really kind to me, and it was Van Halen.
Hey.
So we had so much fun, and me and them and Joan, and we wrestled, and we thought we had the world by the tail. And I look back at a lot of those times now, and I think, wow, we really did not know what was going on. But I would say to most people, if just live in the moment of those times, because you never know. When you look back, you're going to be like, wow. So I've had a lot of really cool things happen different times and tours and stuff like that. But hanging out with those guys, that was fun. That was cool.
That's a
Yeah.
once in a
Hanging out
lifetime,
with
huh?
Robert Plant, this is my name dropping section, so everybody get a broom. But all these cool people that I was very young and I really didn't understand who I was hanging out with, and I don't think half of them didn't either. So just knew we had a lot of fun. And while some people have some bad stories to tell, I have nothing but good ones. I had a great time. I really did. I just thought everything was super cool, and I was cool, and we would stand in front of the mirror and practice looking cool. So it was all about being cool.
Well, I'll tell you
Our
what.
hair was huge, and
I love that. I love that one with the car. Gosh, I can't remember.
Oh yeah, Young Wild Boys. That was a good car. That was Bill Bungard.
That was
fantastic. Bill Bungard from Seattle area, Northwest. He's a great photographer. That guy.
Oh, great.
He snapped some good shots. That was a beautiful car.
Yeah.
That car got more looks than anything else did when we were shooting that video.
I
People
know.
stopping us on the street. I got to drive it. The guy goes, "Can you drive a stick?" And I go, "Well, yeah, but now you have me nervous. Now, because So I drove it very slowly around the block about 40 times. It was fun.
So, oh my gosh, I just love that picture. But anyway, the last question is: now we got that Van Halen thing out of the way. Amazing, just amazing. But I want to ask you to be a little more specific about I don't know how many people that you play for in how many people. If it's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or just, smaller groups. But is there any particular time that you played that stands out in your mind about the crowd, or some experience that you had on stage while you were performing?
Well, gosh. There was one show that we did. We were touring the Midwest, actually. And we were on tour called Wild Cherry, and we were in Nebraska. And we were we would stop and set up on the back of this flatbed truck, and that was the stage.
I played
and
there.
I remember driving through Nebraska, and we stopped. And there's 4 bands on the tour. And I said to one of the guys in the other band, I go, "There's nobody here. How could there possibly be anybody here? This is ridiculous. I can't believe we're playing here." We had just stopped in Wall Drugs in Wall, South Dakota, and we were driving on through there's a moose out there. I mean, it was wild country. And they're setting up at 6:00 at night, and I'm like, oh my God, it was hot. I was pretty miserable, kind of mad actually. And I went in the trailer and getting ready and blah, blah, blah. I come out. There was probably 4,000 people there. It was packed. And I'm like, where did these people come from? And this town, and out in the cornfield. And we had a blast. It was a super, super, super cool night. And I said, well, I'm not going to ask you. I'm not going to ask any more dumb questions, because apparently people love rock and roll. And actually, to this day, I'm in love with the Midwest and playing out in places like that, because those people love music, and kind of still do. I mean, it's still one of my favorite places. I played, what's the big motorcycle rally out there?
In South Dakota. Yeah. The one, yeah.
Play out there. And so, it's just it's great people. So that was one of my biggest surprises, and you're thinking,
He said,
That happens in Germany a lot too. You set up and you leave and you think, wow, this looks like a
nothing.
quiet little town, and you come back and it's not quiet. They just wake up.
That motorcycle rally, one of our people listening
Sturgis,
is probably
yeah,
Bob, said Sturgis, yeah. So, yeah.
Sturgis. Thank you, Bob. I know, for a second there, it takes me a minute sometimes.
So, in closing, and I hate to end this because I think there's so much more in your life that's worth covering. Um, and he said, "Thank you, Roni Lee, Bob Kettrick." So
Thank you, Bob.
there's so much more that you have to share, because that was a long period of time that you've already had, and God knows, God willing, you're going to have a whole lot more years coming up, and new things, new times, and new experiences. Everything changes, and if you were giving if you were in a public forum other than this one, let's say, some news station or whatever we're interviewing you, and they asked you, what advice would you give independent singer songwriters, older musicians who are in a certain point in their life, or any musician or singer in general? What advice would you give them?
Well, it's funny because I give the same piece of advice out a lot, and not everybody agrees with it, but it's my usual answer. I say yes to almost everything, and I know people say, "Oh, you should get," and not. I say almost because I caveat that. But I have had some of my greatest experiences by just doing something that maybe other people might not have done. And especially older or legacy or mature artists or whatever we call them. I'm not sure if I ever really matured, but it's a lot of say, well, I'm tired, or I'm this and that. And we all feel that, I feel it too. And I've got a couple of friends saying, well, how come you do all these things? I said, because I do them. I get up and I do them, and sometimes I do them against how I feel like doing, but you have to be disciplined. Just like I'm an entrepreneur, right? I've done this by this is my business. Nobody makes me get up at a certain time and go out and start working on Facebook events and recording and doing these and planning this and getting this show going. I have to be my own motivator. And if you can't be your own motivator and you can't keep going, you're going to miss some things. Now, we all have to balance this with our lives, and it happens all the time. I'm not a great balancer. I tend to overcommit quite a bit, and sometimes I regret it, but I'm going to say that 90% of the time, I don't regret the commitments that I make. There's always going to be a few, but that's the risk that you take when you're a yes sayer. And I am a yes sayer. And one time I went and opened for missing persons, and somebody's like, oh, you're doing it for free, and you're driving all the way over here, and then the band, and it costs you money. I go, I know, but I'm going to do the show anyway. Well, ended up, she got sick. She sang 2 songs and left. I sang for missing persons that night in place of her, and became friends with the band, and we've done shows ever since. And it's just, that's the kind of stuff that happens, and you meet these great people, and music is about meeting people. And how many times have you heard, well, I was in the right place at the right time? Well, you're not going to be in the right place at the right time if you're home.
That's right.
I'm telling you right now. So,
exactly.
You have to sometimes push past the discomfort a little. And I think for me, it's been rewarding. So
I agree with you, Roni. I've done that too, so I get it. Yeah, I do.
I know. Yeah, it gets harder, and some nights it's harder than others. Believe me. And like I said, I'll wake up sometimes going, "Oh my God,
yeah,
I don't know why I did that."
Yeah.
Well, I'm blessed with some good health and a lot of energy too. I do have that, and you can't say that for everyone. I'm just saying, as much as you can, if you're in this industry, it's something that sometimes you just have to agree to things. You just don't always know what the outcome's going to be, and see where the wind takes you.
I get it. But making a comment about you don't know if you're matured or not. That's okay because
Yeah.
Lynn said he's going to have a counter group to mine called immature musicians.
Well, I will be, I'm sure, in that group, although I think Lynn is definitely the poster boy for leading that one. He-
True.
he's he's a kid. He's a kid at heart, always will be, and I love that about him. So
Yeah.
that's part of what I think all musicians have is none of us really want to do any adulting, not the
Well,
most fun thing.
actually, when I started this, there were a number of different names that I went through, but the reason that I chose matured was the music. The music matured. I mean, there's some people it comes early. I mean, so you have these child proteges, they're just amazing. And sometimes it comes, with the experience and having played for a long time. But that was the point. And I wanted to use veterans, but musical veterans or whatever.
Yeah,
But
no, you have a good name. You're right. I'll tell you what, I get this question a lot. People will ask me, when did you feel like you achieved the ability, your abilities like flowered or whatever you want to call it, matured? I said there's a moment in time. It's almost a moment. It might not be an exact moment, but it's real. There's a period of time when what you want to play in your head comes out your hands, and it takes a while. It takes decades sometimes, for maybe less or more for some people than others. And I'm still wanting. Obviously, I want to play better. We all do, and things get in the way. But that moment, that time period when you can finally go, okay, that's what I was trying to play, and now it sounds like that. That's a pretty cool moment. So if you asked me earlier about moments, I would say that musically was probably my favorite. And that was probably about, not gonna lie, probably maybe only about 15 years ago, because the rest of the time I was just plunking along playing the little songs that we played, but I wasn't really trying to reach out and do more things and more, and so anyway, that's a maturity too, when you can finally do that, and you'll get there with your stuff too. You're working.
I'm working on it. Yeah. I don't know how many years I got left to work, but I'm working. So we've got a few more comments here before we close. And I'm sorry I've kept you about 7 minutes over. I hope you didn't have another appointment. But anyway.
I do, but that's okay.
Oh, no. No. So there'll be another person thanked us without telling us. We've got 2 hello Ronnies without saying who they are. Says no adulting, it's off limits. And this one said, Joy and Ronnie, great interview. Thank you both, Bob Kendrick. And with that, we'll close. I hate to say goodbye, but I know you'll be back up here, and please post things on Mature Musicians so we know when you're going to be doing here. I know we got February 9th.
Like I said, my next show is February 12th at the Vessel Tap House in Linwood. Okay. And I'll be there with the Davinos. And we have a great time together. That's going to be a Valentine's party. So bring your favorite pink outfit and come on down and dance the night away with us. We have a lot of fun down there.
And one last comment, wonderful interview, Ronnie, and that was by Patrick O'Donnell. So with that,
thank you.
With that, we'll leave you for now. Maybe you'll come back sometime in the future, a little further down the road when you have that bio and some your new albums out. So thank you so very much, Ronnie, for this interview and taking the time to let us learn more about your music and your career.
Thank you, Joy. I appreciate it so much. You guys all have a great week.
All right, guys. Bye, guys. Bye now. With that, our broadcast is ending. I hope you enjoyed today, and please find us. Please find Ronnie on YouTube. It is posted on my channel, Joyanne Lajoie on YouTube. And with that, I'm ending. Have a good rest of your week. Bye-bye.